teams I put just outside of the bubble. Chicago, Seattle, Buffalo, San Francisco. I believe there are fatal flaws that eliminate you even if you have a good record. Down sitting on the sidelines. Let's talk the Seahawks. They turn it over too much. No team has ever won a Super Bowl. Bottom 3 in giveaways. Seattle's number 2. Only the Vikings have given away the ball more, and that's because of quarterback play. Seattle is just too reckless.
Okay, I want to talk about this. Now, Seattle Seahawks have undeniably had some of their turnover issues here, but I think a lot of them can be explained. Saying they're too reckless implies that they're trying to do too much, or they're too loose with the ball, or like you have a quarterback who's taking too many risks or something. Like that's not the story here. It's not the story here at all. The Seahawks, as you can see, 22 turnovers. The Vikings at 26. First off, they had a couple, especially the one main trick play that they now completely abandoned, right? Where they were trying to like, let's bring in our rookie backup quarterback, and I like ripped them for that against the Bucs. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? It's like, that's a little bit of a fluke. Then they tried to do I think Cooper Kupp threw an interception, and it was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, we could say that is reckless, but I'd argue that they learned from that, and those were just them trying some stuff out. They're like, let's not really do that, right? Those players are few and far between. They're not trying to become Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions. Then you had outlier games where you had a bunch of elite turnovers, like elite interceptions, elite defensive play going up against the Texans. Okay, that's a handful of turnovers, along with whatever the heck happened against Los Angeles Rams, right? That was also, for the most part, a little bit of an outlier. Again, unless you want to say that there's this fundamental fatal flaw about Sam Darnold. But, if we reject that being the conclusion, we reject that being the reality, we can gather a whole handful of, bad decisions that I think were made by coaching, and that they learned from that. So I'm not going to apply that going into the future, especially in the playoffs. If Cooper Kupp throws an interception, or if they bring in a third string quarterback to do some trickery and they turn the ball over, I will say I was wrong, and I will rip the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, I will rip them to pieces, but I'm just not anticipating that. And then when we remove, again, some of the elite turnovers, like I said, defensively, that you just were like, hey man, hat tip to you. That was a heck of a play. Remove some of these fluky bouncing off someone and pop it in the air, etc. Like, the turnovers would be within range. They would be within range of any of these other teams, right? The Broncos, the Rams are at 11. They've done a great job of taking care of the ball. The Patriots, like Colin has for instance, the Patriots in the Super Bowl bubble, okay, and they're at 13. He's got the Rams at 11. The Broncos are in the bubble at 13. The Packers are in there, and so I get it. Taking care of the ball is incredibly important, and 22 is a lot of turnovers. Not downplaying that, but that number 22, if we remove a little bit 2 of the dumb trick plays, that drops down to 20, and you now have a legitimate outlier game against the Rams that was just turnover, as well as now the Vikings. You had a whole handful of turnovers. Like, that already now drops you down to right in this range, to right smack dab in the middle, right around like 14 or so. And so you're just now within range of the other teams that take care of the ball. Now, to be fair, we can't just say, well, those other turnovers just don't count. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But this is a discussion. If we were looking at this from a data perspective, and if this was like actual research, you really would manipulate the data in various ways and be like, yes, with this, they're at the top. But we do recognize that a couple of these games were not necessarily their norm per se. That you can't, that's like, it's not abnormal either because they are turning the ball over, but this just seems a little bit more extreme than normally. And if you want to say, well, that's directly because Sam Darnold can't handle the pressure, etc., etc., it's like, I'll disagree with that statement. But if that ends up being true, you then have to just trust the Seattle Seahawks to be able to find a way through that, to be able to coach through that and put Sam in a better position to minimize that harm, to minimize the negative impact that the Seahawks could face from this fatal flaw about, from a Sam Darnold. If Sam had like the bulk of these interceptions, if it was just like, man, this guy is, he's Geno Smith. He's just throwing interception. He's got 50 touchdowns, but he's got 30 interceptions, right? 30-30. Didn't Jameis Winston do that, or Baker, or whoever, whatever the heck it was? Like, then I could understand. I just don't see it that way currently. I mean, Sam Darnold has 10 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes has 7, right? Dak Prescott has 8. Bo Nix has 9. Justin Herbert has 10. You want it lower. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I just disagree with the conclusion of reckless. And that's the problem. If they were going for broke all the time and Sam Darnold just kept pushing it down the field and pushing it down the field and pushing it, he was holding on to the ball because he was constantly trying to make a big play. That to me then is reckless. He's constantly trying to take chances, throw the ball in tight windows, getting pick sixes and whatnot. And again, he's scrambling, he's going left and he's doing his little U-turn, which we see all these quarterbacks do these days. And then now he just, has the ball stripped from him and whatnot. It's like, yeah, that's all reckless. Undeniably. That's just not how I see this unfolding. I mean, even if we look at turnover-worthy plays, so now putting the ball in harm's way, Sam Darnold has 14, Dak has 15, Patrick Mahomes has 17, Bo Nix has 14, Caleb Williams, and Colin keeps praising Caleb for taking care of the ball and not throwing interceptions and not putting the ball in harm's way. Well, then you could say the same thing about Sam Darnold, right? They're just one away from each other. Jordan Love, who's done a great job this season of not putting the ball in harm's way, 11 turnover-worthy plays. I mean, that's the way it goes. Sometimes it's just a great defense of stop. Sometimes it's just bad luck. Sometimes you have a turnover-worthy play and you don't suffer the consequence. Technically, in a perfect defensive world, Patrick Mahomes would have 17 turnovers right now, 17 interceptions. Instead, he only has 7, right? That means there was 10 other times that the ball absolutely could have been intercepted, and it wasn't. And it's credited to the quarterback rather than that's just a heck of a great defensive play where you're just like, that was, Mahomes didn't have a chance. There was no way for him to see him, et cetera, et cetera. Like they kind of highlighted with Brock Purdy, one of Brock Purdy's 3 interceptions against the Panthers. Troy Aikman was adamant about I think it was Troy Aikman, where he was just like, there's just no way he could have ever seen that defender. That was just a heck of a play, right? And that is just credit to the defense. And sometimes that's the way it goes. And I'd say that the Seahawks have been on the receiving end of some, shall we say, misfortunate events, as well as some self-inflicted, right? Undeniably. So I see them as more solvable problems and slightly, I don't think it's fair enough to say that they're like complete outliers, because it's not 100%, but like 4 interceptions or 4 turnovers, I forget what it was, against the Rams, to me, is more of an outlier. Like if it was 2, I would say, okay, that makes sense. But like 4 was kind of like, okay, it's like, that's excessive. If they play the Rams again and he has another at least 3 interceptions or even 2 interceptions, then I would say, okay, we're starting to now get a little uncomfortable with this idea of like, yeah, there are ways to force turnovers on Sam Darnold. Then I could understand that. But I'm just not going to take that bottom line number and just say, look at all these turnovers, look where they're at, therefore they're reckless, therefore they can't win the Super Bowl. You know, I'm just not prepared to say that in this moment. So those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Seattle Seahawks having the fatal flaw of being reckless? And so now they are not in the Super Bowl bubble. Therefore, according to Colin, they will not even make the Super Bowl. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.